but they just don't know. People seen it, but they just don't know. Come on, baby, let the good time roll.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is straight out of Boston, aka the King of Boston. Today we're back for, not really episode 1, but the introduction to my NBA 2K14 association with the Boston Celtics. Now, I'm not going to be starting this one up just yet, obviously. We are going to, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but we're going to be waiting for some updated rosters, some completed draft classes, and we might even be waiting for next gen. I've said before that I kind of want to wait for the next gen councils to come out before I start this association. I'm kind of having second thoughts about that, just for a couple different reasons. One, I don't know if stuff's going to be immediately ready when next gen comes out. I don't know how bare bones next gen is going to be. We'll see what happens. But anyway, let's take a look at the Celtics roster and talk about what we plan to do. So Rajon Rondo, obviously the star of the team, a 90 overall. He's got 2 years left on his deal. Could be a tradable chip if we look to bottom out. Jeff Green is a player on a 2-year deal with a player option for that third year that is really best suited as a role player on a championship team. Probably not a big piece of the future, so that could be another trade asset. I'm still kind of undecided on whether or not to trade him, but he's the type of player that complements guys like KG and Paul Pierce more than the type of player that can lead a rebuilding team and become kind of a future piece. So we'll see what we do with him. Avery Bradley is on the last year of his rookie level contract. It will be his 4th year in the NBA. He has shown signs of great defensive ability and some decent shooting. He's also shown signs of really not being a player worth the type of money that he's likely going to get on the open market when free agency does hit in the following offseason in 2014. So we'll see what we do with him. Still kind of undecided. And Jordan Crawford is a player that the Celtics traded basically nothing for at the trade deadline in last season. He is also a restricted free agent in the 4th year of his deal. He's a great scorer, but doesn't do much else. We'll see if he will be a part of the future. Not really too sure on him. Courtney Lee and Brandon Bass are going to fall into the same boat here. There are players that were signed to be complementary role players on contracts that aren't that friendly to a rebuilding team, so we'll likely try to unload those guys, as well as the absolutely awful and hideous, disgusting Gerald Wallace contract, still with 3 years, $30 million left on it, and that is going to be a contract that it's going to be hard to unload. We'll have to probably maybe, if we try to trade Rondo, throw Wallace in there for an expiring. Sullinger is power forward. We drafted in the first round in the 2012 NBA draft. He showed great signs in his rookie year, but has to stay healthy with his bad back, and he has to show that he can be a little bit better on the defensive end. Marshawn Brooks, a nice scorer. Had a good rookie year, struggled a little bit last year due to playing time. We'll see if he can improve in his 3rd year first with the Boston Celtics. Chris Humphries, probably not going to move him. He represents a nice expiring contract. That's a good asset to have on a rebuilding team. So we'll likely be keeping him. Brandon Bass, I kind of touched on him and Courtney Lee earlier. Role players that aren't really meant to be pieces on those type of contracts on a rebuilding team, so we'll likely try to unload those guys. And a first round pick from this year, Kelly Olynyk, obviously locked up for 2 years with 2 more player options. We'll see what he becomes. You know, he could be a nice big man off the bench. We'll kind of see what happens. Not really too sure. And Keith Bogans, not much to say about him other than the fact that I think he's only has a 1-year contract in real life, not a 2-year, so hopefully that'll be fixed. So let's get into the contract extensions. So obviously I mentioned Avery Bradley and Jordan Crawford's rookie level contracts are up at the end of the year. Bradley's a likelier extension candidate than Crawford. We'll see what happens, though. I'm not 100% sold on Avery Bradley being a future piece of this team. And Chris Humphries we're likely going to let walk at the end of the season. He doesn't really represent someone that could help us in the future. Let's take a look at what our budget is looking like. So we are just under the luxury tax in real life. This game doesn't represent that very well, actually. I think we're like $7 or $8 million under the tax, whereas in real life, the Celtics are only a couple $100,000 under the luxury tax. So we're likely going to not make too many moves that will add on money to the team to stay out of the luxury tax, because although that doesn't actually get affected in this game, it'd still be nice to kind of keep it somewhat realistic in that sense. And as you can see, we have more salary and more, salary cap, I should say, salary cap room as the years do progress on. Here is a look at everyone's contract when they're going to expire. The blue represents a team option. The green represents a player option. You'll see the green on Jeff Green's contract when we get to that. But a lot of guys on multi-year contracts that we're going to try and unload. I want to clear out some cap space. I'm a really big fan of the 2010 NBA draft, and that is the draft that all their rookie level deals are expiring at the end of this year. So I'd like to maybe try and go after some of those restricted free agents in the offseason. And the Boston Celtics have a brand new head coach. It will be Brad Stevens replacing Doc Rivers. Stevens was signed to a 6-year contract, so he's likely not headed anywhere after he was, basically it was the only way to sway him from leaving his head coaching position at the University of Butler. But either way, he looks to be our head coach of the future, and we're going to get into an intra-squad scrimmage here while I kind of talk about some general strategy for the team. Now, obviously, as I've stated a couple times now, we're not going to be starting this up for probably another 3 or 4 weeks, to be quite honest. It's going to be a while. There's so many roster moves that happen in between now and opening day, so I really don't like the idea of starting up the association and then not having the opening day rosters, so we're going to be waiting a little bit. But let's talk about some general strategies. So the Celtics are at a very interesting group of players right now. A lot of people think that they can maybe win 30 to 35 games. A lot of people think that they're going to win 10 to 15 games. Not a lot of people are very sure of what the team or how the team is going to perform as a group. A lot of new players on the team, a lot of players who have departed, specifically KG and Paul Pierce, the remaining two of the big three at that point when they were traded. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's a lot of questions. Is Chris Humphries going to go back to the lockout season? Chris Humphries, that was a double-double machine. Is Marshawn Brooks going to put up double-digit points now that he's actually going to get some playing time? Is Avery Bradley going to find a shot again now that he doesn't have to play point guard when Rondo comes back? How is Rondo going to be when he comes back? There's a lot of questions then, a lot of things that are up in the air about this group of players. And this team could really go in a lot of different directions. Now, obviously, the most popular kind of strategy for NBA teams these days is to tank, is to bottom out, is to make your team as bad as possible for a couple years, collect some draft picks, and the Celtics do have plenty of those. I'm also going to be force trading the Nets draft picks that we got in the KG Paul Pierce trade to myself because really, you know, that's not a good trade for us unless we do get those draft picks, so I feel like that should be reflected in the association. So when we combine that with the pick we attained from the Doc Rivers trade, we end up with 9 first-round draft picks in the next 5 years. And the really big thing that we're going to be looking for is kind of when we get towards the 2016 draft. So we have the Nets picks in the 2014, 16, and 18 drafts. We have the Clippers pick in the 2015 draft. Likely the Clippers and Nets are going to be pretty good for the next 2 years. But I think that third year in 2016 is really when that is going to be a good pick from the Nets. A lot of, you know, they have an old group of players. Pierce and KG are not going to be around in 3 years. Darren Williams, Joe Johnson are going to get a little bit older, a little bit worse, kind of, you know, player skill-wise. Lopez will be a little bit better, but I don't think he'll be enough to carry that team, and I think that could be kind of a lottery team at that point. So that's when we're going to really look to get the advantages of getting that pick. We also have the option in 2017 to swap first-round picks with the Nets, so let's say that the Celtics are having a really good year and the Nets are kind of in rebuilding mode. We get to swap our first-round picks, so instead of having the 29th pick, we'll have the 7th pick in the draft. That's kind of a sneaky good part of that trade that I was actually really excited about when I found out about that deal. So those are some of the assets and extra draft picks that the team does have. As for direction, whether we're going to tank, whether we're going to, you know, not tank, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Tanking is such a strong word. You know, there's a difference between tanking and making your team like not as good. So like when the Celtics, after they made that trade, they didn't sign anybody. They pretty much kept the roster that they have that they had. It didn't really add on to it at all because they don't want to make the playoffs this year. Obviously, they're going to try and get a lottery pick, and Danny Ainge knows that, and he's not really, you know, he'll come out and say whatever he wants about how, you know, we're not tanking, we're going to try and put the best team out there we can. But everyone knows that, you know, we're not actually trying to do that. And I think that obviously, you know, tanking is kind of the best way to go. But there is the option to build from the middle. You look at a team like the Houston Rockets, and what general manager Dale Morey did for so long was just build and acquire asset after asset after asset after asset. And, you know, multiple first-round picks, good young players, good young talent. And they eventually used that to pull off the James Harden trade. And because the James Harden trade and the, you know, the good market that Houston is, probably a better market than Boston just due to the weather, with the weather alone. But, and, you know, due to that, they were able to lure Dwight Howard. And now they have 2 superstars on their team in Dwight Howard and James Harden. And they look like a contender once again without ever going below like 40 wins in the past 10 years or whatever. So, you know, that's a team that didn't tank, that they rebuilt from the middle. You look at a team like the Dallas Mavericks, they're, you know, Mark Cuban is going to do whatever he can to put the best basketball team out there possible. And, you know, that's another team that's in a good market. They've had good success. When players go to that team, they know that they have an owner that's going to do whatever it takes to win. And that's what they do. So, you know, that's another team that's kind of built from the middle. They've won a championship. They've had plenty of playoff appearances. They've been very relevant in the NBA for the past 10 years. So there are ways to build from the middle like that. The problem is Boston is not a great market. It's a crappy winter city. You know, obviously you have great history with the franchise. It's, you know, one of the best franchises in NBA history. But, you know, it doesn't have the lore that Houston does or Los Angeles or New York or anything like that. So we kind of struggle to, you know, find the players that are willing to come and play for Boston unless there's already kind of a situation present that was there in 2007 when, you know, we just traded for Allen and KG. And I always say we. I apologize. As a Celtics fan, it's very hard for me to not say we sometimes. But anyway, so, you know, there's the option of building from the middle. It seems like kind of the common theme these days is to tank, though. And in 2K, especially with the draft classes and guys kind of have set potential, then, you know, it's very easy to just rebuild through the draft. I mean, that's pretty much the easy way to do it. It's how everyone does it at this point. So we'll see if we try something different. I'm not really too sure. I mean, I like the idea of building through the draft. I think it's the best way possible, but I think it is kind of a little too easy in 2K. On Next Gen, I've heard that they're going to switch up the potential ratings a little bit and have it be that potential isn't set. If a player plays poorly, he's not going to progress as well. If a player has a low potential but plays very well, his potential will go up. So that's something that I really want to look for in future 2Ks. I've talked about that before, but anyway, so that's kind of the general strategy. We're not really too sure yet if we're going to go on full-on tank mode when, it comes in February and, we're not even close to the playoffs and we just decide to sit Rondo and sit all those guys, have phantom injuries, and take guys out when they're hot and go full-on 1996, 1997 Celtics tanking mode, which was an ugly year. I don't want to remember that year. Anyway, that's pretty much going to wrap this video for me. I just want to talk about general strategy. I want to introduce you guys to the series and kind of introduce us to some of the players, what our plans are with those players, and all that good stuff. So anyway, that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you did enjoy, and this was Mal. Peace.